Thanks a lot, Lasky and Corla. Yeah, I really do actually want to thank Sinn Féin for using their time on this issue again. It's actually ironic, in the last couple of months or so, every time the opposition demands a debate on something, the Taoiseach in particular likes to say, oh, but sure, you have all this private members' time to use. You want a debate on Yemen, you want a debate in the National Maternity Hospital, use your private members' time. Well, maybe if the government and the state agencies of the HSE didn't break their own law and force Sinn Féin and the opposition to use their private members' time to raise the same issues again and again to try and pursue the basics that children with special needs get what they deserve, get what they need, instead of being like messed around, just, you know, the brains of the HSE being put not to resolve the problems that people have and to provide every assistance that they need, but instead to fiddle around with the figures to try and cover up what was going on. Well, then the opposition may have more free time available to discuss some of the other issues that we want to debate. You know, this really shouldn't be necessary. Second point I want to make is that obviously for the second time in a month, the government is going to pass an opposition private members' motion in relation to children with special needs, in relation to the assessment of needs. Okay, you know, better you pass it than you don't pass it, grand. But like, what the families, what the parents want to see is not just the Dáil passing motions. They want us to pass motions to put pressure on the government to actually do something about the issue. And so they want concrete action. There's concrete demands in the motion that they want to see happen. There is no excuse for Ireland not signing the optional protocol. The only reason not to sign the optional protocol is not to provide people with actually a route to ensure that their rights under the UNCRPD are able to be vindicated. So we need to see that immediately, so that if you don't do what you're meant to be doing, well, then people have a route to vindicate their rights. We need a full and transparent publication of all the waiting lists, so we see the truth about what is happening, a truth that is being consciously covered up and distorted by the HSE, contrary to the law as it currently exists. And then we just need, I mean, it's not rocket science, we need investment to ensure that kids get the supports that they need. The latest figures I saw, 34,000 children waiting for community health supports. Speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, all the therapies people know that people need to be able to access. I do also want to pay tribute. I mean, it strikes me every time I meet families about this issue, is how, you know, they've enough going on in their lives. They've enough pressure in terms of actually trying to support their children, do everything they can for their children. And then the government and the state leaves them with no alternative but to spend a huge amount of time fighting for things that just should be basic rights, things that are meant to be basic rights. And just pay tribute to all those people who were involved in activism around this issue, despite the fact they have no time for it. Those people who go through all the way to take the state to court, all the way up to the High Court to try and vindicate the rights of their children. But they absolutely shouldn't have to do it. I want to raise one particular case, again, just illustrating the general failure, like criminal failure by the state of children with special needs. I was talking to a woman yesterday, she was happy for me to use her name, Sharon Saunders, whose child has Down syndrome. And I have here 3 refusal letters year on year, 2020, 2021, 2022, whereby, like, everybody accepts he really needs to have a space in a special school, but year on year he has rejection letters from the school that there isn't enough space and that he's on a waiting list, and that year on year it never happens. And that's no criticism of the school, it's a criticism of the fact that we don't have sufficient investment in our education, in our healthcare, to ensure that children get the support that they need. You know, we've all this lip service about early intervention, but then the practice is extremely late intervention. And the consequence of that lack of investment is that this 12-year-old is sitting in a mainstream 5th class primary school at the back of the class getting assistance from an SNA. And there's no criticism of the school that he's currently in. They're doing everything that they possibly can to support him, but it isn't where he needs to be. He needs to be in a special school. That's the best thing for him, but we just have a failure to invest in the resources to ensure that the spaces are there. And that's a political choice. A different political choice can be made and should be made.